Greetings. I'm reading the Tao Te Ching in English. One of many translations, but this one's particularly great. This is the Practicing the Tao Te Ching by Solana Towler. And I'm on step 19 of 81 here. Recapping step 18. When great Tao is abandoned, then benevolence and righteousness appear. It talks about basically community and abandoning the common flow, or the sense of oneness, I suppose, in a community. Then it becomes a mechanical obligation, and people become people for good and ill. So, step 19. Abandon sageliness. Renounce intellectual knowledge, and people will be 100 times better off. Abandon benevolence, which was used in the step 18. So these two are tightly linked. Reject righteousness, and people will naturally return to filial piety and compassion. Give up cleverness and discard selfishness, and there will be no bandits and thieves. Yet these three things are considered outward things only. They are not sufficient. Take this advice. Know the plain and embrace simplicity. Reduce your sense of self and lessen your desires. Give up intellectual learning, and you will have no worries. This is interesting. I just recently made a video on Carl Jung's one of his letters that he wrote in 1915. I find it really it's a strange letter, and it was confusing and very technical. It's part of a long 2-year correspondence in which, among other things, he in this one letter describes how understanding is a devourer. So it talks in this step about renouncing intellectual knowledge. Now I'm going to have to do some more research and digging. There's a sense of you can be deceived by too much knowledge. That's another thing. Okay, going back a few steps. Step 16. Allow yourself to become empty. Abide in stillness. Yep, I'm going back quite a ways. Here we are. Step 12. The 5 colors blind the eye. The 5 tones deafen the ears. The 5 flavors dull the palate. It concludes, this is why the sage cares for his inner vision instead of what he sees with his eyes. He lets go of the second and chooses the first. The senses, the things that one sees and feels are important. I would say he lets go of the second and chooses the first. It's not like to say that you must object to, of course that's foolishness, but you choose the first, which is the inner vision. You prioritize the inner vision, the interpretation, over the constant incoming information and senses. Renounce intellectual knowledge. That is perhaps what is, and I wish I should go back to the Chinese text for this. Probably get to that in one of the next videos. Renounce intellectual knowledge, and people will be 100 times better off. So talking about, like, I suppose it's talking about the incomplete knowledge, and this is what Apostle Paul speaks about in the Bible, 1 Corinthians 13. If I have all knowledge and can speak with the tongues of angels, or speak with angels, and if I have everything but have not love, what does it profit me? It doesn't profit me anything. So yeah, renouncing intellectual knowledge that is exclusive, I suppose. That's what it's all about. Sageliness. The idea of being maybe a sophist, somebody who goes around taking credit and profiting from apparent wisdom. Abandon it. Why? Well, that's the next question. What do you replace it with? Well, okay. Well, I think that it's answered here. I would say that Paul answers it in 1 Corinthians 13 with love, plus faith, hope, and faith and hope. Here we have abandon benevolence, righteousness, and people will naturally return to filial piety and compassion. Compassion, love. Give up cleverness and discard selfishness. Yeah. 1 Corinthians 13. If I give my body to be burned, but I have not love, what does it profit me? Like, I can't understand. It's funny to imagine like a false martyr. I can't understand that. I've tried to put myself in that to understand how does a person who's, well, giving his body to be burned, that's selfishness if you do it without love. Give up cleverness and discard selfishness, and there will be no bandits and thieves. Well, actually, see, here we were talking about acquisition of wealth, but it's really just response. It's response to a state of self-focus. It doesn't have to be cleverness and selfishness and acquisition of items that result in, banditry or theft. Banditry. Ah, that's awesome. Okay, so, I mean, anybody who's, I suppose, operating without love, somebody who's operating without love and compassion, somebody who's acting in benevolence. Well, now that's also reminding me of the Sermon on the Mount that I just recorded. Set your light upon the hilltop, so all who can see your good deeds will praise your heavenly Father. But if you don't be like the people that blow horns and trumpets and announce how great they are in their moments of charity. Abandon benevolence and righteousness, false righteousness, like self-indulgent benevolence. Return to filial piety. So many good words across the ages. Take this advice. Know the plain and embrace the simplicity. Reduce your sense of self and lessen your desires. Give up intellectual learning, and you will have no worries. Give up intellectual learning. So, give up the obsession with gaining more knowledge, just for the sake of knowledge, necessarily, or that extra knowledge without love or compassion or the usefulness of it. Like, if one is just collecting intellectual knowledge without the practical use of how to make life better for other people, that's kind of hoarding. That's what I probably could be. I'm probably a majorly guilty party in doing that. And I'm trying to work through these. This is what I'm trying to do with these videos, is I'm trying to work through my thoughts in a sort of a complete singular flow, without cutting the videos, just thinking straight out of the words and processing them on the fly, because I need to be able to, not for myself, but for others, for my life to be better, I need to work through things and internalize them so that I can bring value to others and not claim it for myself. But I am seeking, that is what I'm seeking. I'm not seeking intellectual learning just for myself here. So I've given that up and I have no worries. I feel a lot less worried that I'm going to come off as a intellectualist, or I mean, I've felt like that in the past, but well, my usage of Facebook and social media has been recently very conservative. I figured out a way of sort of like retail therapy. I love the concept of retail therapy, and abstracted out. I applied to Facebook by, for a time, setting the default privacy on all of my new posts to me only. So people just nobody besides myself, when I posted something fresh on Facebook, nobody would see it. And that had a great effect on trimming down what I felt was valuable. It's not just me sharing because I'm intellectual and I have all this knowledge. Yay! I am righteous. I'm benevolent. Look at me. No. I had to get rid of that, and part of that was, figuring out how to manage my own behavior. And yeah, I'm going to step back to another step. Okay. Step 17. The lowest teacher has followers who scorn her. Well, I don't know that people scorned me on Facebook. It's kind of silly to think that some people have lots of community with their usage of Facebook. I suppose that's this next one, the next highest, has followers who fear her. That doesn't really apply to Facebook. Or it might in some contexts. It's not me, or that I know of people that I know. The next higher of a teacher has followers who love and praise her. Well, okay. Well, I'm not seeking love and praise. I'm totally not seeking love and praise. But then the highest teacher is not even known by others. It just sends out meaningful teaching and goodness into the ether, if you will. Well, there's a lot of interesting things that come up with this reading of the Tao Te Ching, and I'm really finding this is what comes from reading wisdom, reading it serially, reading it like not just picking it up and reading it once, one little portion, like picking up the Bible in the Old Testament and reading the book of Psalms or Proverbs. If you read just a small, tiny portion of it, it's self-serving, I think. It's good for a behavioral habit to understand, yes, okay, I'm reading my Bible, or yes, I'm reading my Tao Te Ching, I'm doing my meditations, I'm praying, I am exercising every morning. I do one push-up. But that's the way I'm joking about that. Like, I think doing one push-up, doing a little tiny bit, is more than zero. But it seems like it's missing something that's greater. And I think something that is missed that can be achieved. Now I have to warn myself, can't have too much input. Like in step 12 it says, the 5 colors blind the eye, 5 tones deafen the ears, the 5 flavors dull the palate. I can't have I shouldn't think, well, in the 5 steps dull the knowledge. I mean, heck, that could be said. That's funny. Why not? But it needs to be processed, and yeah, I mean that's pretty obvious. All of this has a strange effect in aggregate. I have no idea what it'd be like to watch my videos in like sequence, or like out of sequence and just one at a time, but to actually interpret all of these later on when I'm finally finished, all like as many as however many I do, it'll probably be it'll be interesting. Anyway, step 19, abandon self knowledge or self intellectual knowledge when it's just self-serving. Just return to filial piety and compassion. Take this advice. Know the plain and embrace simplicity. Reduce your sense of self and lessen your desires. Give up intellectual learning and you will have no worries.